All right, so today we're diving deep into the story of Jimmy Wales and Wikipedia. It's a story about the internet, yeah, but it's really about how one person's passion for knowledge can spark a global movement. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Born in 1966, his path to building the world's largest encyclopedia, well, let's just say it was anything but straightforward.
It really was, and it's a story that challenges our assumptions about how knowledge is created and shared. You'd be surprised to know that Wales's journey, well, it didn't start in some Silicon Valley startup, that's for sure.
That's interesting. So let's go back to the beginning, his early years. What sparked his love of learning? What was it about his upbringing?
Well, from a young age, he was just surrounded by books. His family really encouraged him to just explore whatever he was curious about. And his education, too, played a key role. He attended a school, get this, a school that emphasized self-directed learning. Pretty amazing considering what he would go on to create.
Really? That's wild. So almost like the seeds for Wikipedia were planted right there in his childhood.
Yeah, exactly. So he had this foundation of valuing open education, access to information, but his career, it didn't start with encyclopedias, right?
Right.
He actually started in finance and economics, working as a researcher. It wasn't until the 90s, with the rise of the internet, that things took a turn. He saw this potential to connect people and make information more accessible than ever before.
Oh, so this is where the vision for like a more open and collaborative approach to knowledge started to form.
Yeah, precisely. And his first real attempt to kind of, revolutionize the encyclopedia came in the year 2000 with this project called Nupedia.
Wikipedia. Oh, yeah. I vaguely remember hearing about that. Wasn't it a bit of a flop, though?
It was. And understanding why is really crucial to understanding how we got Wikipedia. Nupedia, it aimed to be this incredibly comprehensive and rigorously vetted, online encyclopedia. It relied on experts in various fields to write and review articles, ensuring accuracy and academic rigor. The problem was, though, the process itself.
Oh, I see. Like too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah. Think multiple layers of peer review, extensive editing, a strict approval process. It was slow, incredibly cumbersome, and resulted in, get this, only 21 articles being published in an entire year.
Whoa. Only 21 articles. That's a far cry from the millions of articles on Wikipedia today.
Yeah.
So what did this failure teach Wales? What did he take away from that experience?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. So instead of giving up, right, he saw this as a valuable learning experience. He realized that traditional top-down approach to creating an encyclopedia, it just wasn't going to work in the fast-paced world of the internet. He needed something more agile, something that embraced the power of, collaboration.
Okay, yeah, so that's how Wikipedia was born.
Exactly. On January 15th, 2001, Wikipedia was launched with this, radical concept. Anyone could contribute. This completely flipped the script on the traditional model of expert-driven knowledge.
Oh, wow. I bet that was met with some serious skepticism, right?
Oh, you bet. People were really concerned about accuracy, reliability, vandalism, all that. Could an encyclopedia built by volunteers, right, really compete with the traditional authoritative sources? It was a bold experiment, to say the least.
So how did Wikipedia overcome these early challenges and grow into, the behemoth it is today? How did that happen?
Well, despite the initial doubts, something pretty amazing happened. Wikipedia started to grow, and it grew fast. People from all over the world started contributing their knowledge, editing articles, creating new ones. The platform's open and collaborative nature just tapped into this collective desire to share and learn.
Really is a testament to the power of crowdsourcing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But even with this explosive growth, I imagine there were still bumps along the road, right?
Oh, absolutely. One interesting tidbit is that Wikipedia was almost called Wikipedia without the I.
Really? Wikipedia?
It was a last-minute change, and it makes you wonder how different things might have been if they'd stuck with that original name.
Wikipedia. It just doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? Maybe that I made all the difference.
Maybe. And here's another surprising thing. When Wikipedia first started, Wales funded the entire project himself out of his own pocket.
Wow, really? Out of his own pocket?
He believed that strongly in free knowledge, that he was willing to invest his own money to make it a reality.
That's dedication. It shows how much he believed in this project.
Mm-hmm.
But how did he plan to sustain it financially long term? How did that work?
That's where the Wikimedia Foundation comes in. It's a nonprofit specifically to support Wikipedia and all its related projects. They rely on donations from people all over the world just to keep Wikipedia free and accessible for everyone.
So no ads, no subscription fees, just pure, unadulterated knowledge available to everyone. That's remarkable. But what about Jimmy Wales himself? Does he receive any compensation for all of this?
This is the part that often surprises people. Jimmy Wales doesn't receive a salary from Wikipedia, not a dime.
Seriously. The founder of the world's largest encyclopedia doesn't make any money off it.
Nope. He's the honorary president of the Wikimedia Foundation, but has always maintained that Wikipedia is a passion project, not a money-making venture.
Well, that's a story you don't hear every day. To dedicate so much time and effort to something without expecting financial gain speaks volumes about his commitment to making knowledge accessible to everyone.
It does. And his dedication to this open access thing, it goes way beyond Wikipedia, you know? This is someone who's a staunch advocate for net neutrality, that principle that internet service providers should treat all data on the internet equally. No favoring or blocking particular websites. He sees internet access as a basic human right, even working on various projects to expand internet access in developing countries.
So he's not just about making information free, but making sure that everyone can access it in the first place. That's really admirable.
It is. And this leads us to another fascinating chapter, WT Social.
WT Social, right? That's a social network, isn't it? But with a twist.
You got it. WT Social is Wales's answer to concerns about, well, the current state of social media. He's been outspoken about things like data privacy, misinformation, and how toxic online discourse can be, right? So he wanted to create a different kind of platform, one that prioritizes ethical stuff, you know, and fosters more constructive conversations.
Okay, so what sets WT Social apart from, well, the giants we're all familiar with? What's different?
Well, first off, it's subscription-based. Users pay a monthly fee to join. Wales argues that this helps reduce the platform's reliance on advertising and data collection, you know?
Okay.
He believes a more ethical and sustainable model is possible, one that prioritizes user privacy and good content over, just making as much profit as possible.
Interesting. So no ads, but what about the content itself? Yeah. How does WT Social handle the whole misinformation thing, the spread of harmful content? Those issues, they seem to plague even the platforms with good intentions.
Right. And here, the collaborative element comes back into play, similar to the Wikipedia model. WT Social encourages users to actually participate in curating and moderating the content. It's all built around these communities with shared interests, right? Members contribute to discussions, share news from credible sources, and can flag content that, violates the platform's guidelines.
So they're putting a lot of trust in the community to kind of self-regulate. Maintain a good environment.
Yeah, they are. And that's a key part of Wales's vision. He thinks by empowering users to take ownership of their online spaces, you can foster a sense of collective responsibility and promote more thoughtful, constructive dialogue.
That's very different from the algorithms and content moderation we see on other platforms, where decisions are made behind closed doors and users feel powerless. But doesn't this community-driven thing come with its own challenges too?
Oh, it does. It does. One of the biggest criticisms is that it could lead to bias and echo chambers, If communities are left to moderate themselves, there's this risk of becoming insular, reinforcing their own beliefs, and shutting out dissenting voices.
That's a valid concern. So how does WT Social address that potential pitfall?
Well, it's an ongoing challenge, to be honest. They're constantly trying new ways to, promote diversity of thought and encourage respectful debate. One way is by encouraging interactions between different communities, promoting content from different perspectives. They also have ways for users to report, harassment, hate speech, all that, which is then reviewed by moderators.
So it's like combining community self-governance with, some oversight from the platform itself. Seems like they're trying to strike a balance between allowing open dialogue, but ensuring it's a safe and inclusive environment. Yeah. But honestly, even with the best intentions, building a social network that actually lives up to these ideals, that's a huge task.
What are some of the biggest obstacles they're facing with WT Social today? Well, one of the biggest is simply gaining traction in a market that's dominated by these giants, like Facebook and Twitter. It's a challenge to convince people to pay for a social network when there are so many that seem free, right? Even if those free ones come with, strings attached.
That's the dilemma, isn't it? Are people willing to prioritize privacy and ethics over convenience and familiarity? tough question.
It is. And another hurdle is just the complexity of managing these online communities and moderating content effectively. It's this constant fight against trolls, spammers, and people who want to exploit the platform.
Oh, I can imagine. It's like this never-ending game of whack-a-mole, right?
Yeah.
But it is inspiring to see Wales tackling these issues head-on. He's not afraid to challenge how things are done and push for something better online.
Absolutely. And whether WT Social ultimately succeeds in achieving these ambitious goals, well, only time will tell. But it's an important experiment, one that raises these critical questions about the future of social media and technology's role in our lives. It reminds us that we have a choice in how we interact online and that we can demand better from the platforms we use.
That's a powerful message. And it brings us back to what we've been talking about, this power of individuals to drive change. From changing how we access knowledge with Wikipedia to tackling social media ethics with WT Social, Wales shows that one person with a vision can really make a difference in the world. But let's, zoom out for a second and think about the bigger picture. What does Jimmy Wales' story tell us about the future of, open knowledge and the internet itself? What do you think?
That's a great question. I think his story shows that the internet, even with all its problems, still has this incredible potential to spread information and connect people across the globe. But it also reminds us that this potential won't just happen automatically, It needs people, individuals, and organizations to champion these values, challenge the way things are, and build alternatives that prioritize ethical things and, the public good.
It's not just about passively taking in information, but actively shaping the digital world we live in. And that's something we can all be a part of. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's bring it back to you, our listener. What are your thoughts on all this? What's standing out to you as we explore Jimmy Wales' journey?
We'll be back in a bit to wrap up our deep dive and offer some final thoughts on what we can learn from Jimmy Wales' dedication to open knowledge and his quest to build a more ethical internet. Stay tuned. So we're back, ready to dig deeper into WT Social. It's Jimmy Wales' attempt to create a social network based on, ethical content sharing and user privacy. A pretty big contrast to, the platforms we see everywhere today.
Yeah, for me, this is where things get really interesting. We talked about Wikipedia's impact on, knowledge accessibility. But how does Wales plan to deal with all the issues plaguing social media? Misinformation, data privacy, those echo chambers. It's a lot.
You're right, it is. And Wales's approach is to really change how these platforms work. For starters, remember, WT Social is subscription-based. You pay a small fee every month to join.
Right.
Might seem kind of counterintuitive when there's so much free social media, but Wales argues this is key to solving a lot of the problems.
Okay, I see. So no ads, no need to collect and sell user data or, keep people glued to their screens with all that clickbait stuff.
Exactly. When a platform's money comes from users, not ads, their incentives change, right? They're not pushed to collect your data or manipulate your attention. Wales really believes a more ethical and sustainable model is possible, even necessary.
This is fascinating. So It's a different approach for sure. But what about the content? Misinformation, harmful stuff. How do they handle that? Seems like even the platforms with good intentions struggle with that.
This is where the collaborative part comes in, like with Wikipedia. WT Social wants users to be involved in curating and moderating content. It's built around communities focused on shared interests. Members can join discussions, share news from, trustworthy sources, and flag anything that's against the rules.
So it's a lot of trust in the community to kind of police itself and keep things healthy.
It is, yeah. And it's central to Wales's vision. He believes that when users feel ownership over their online space, it creates a sense of responsibility, right? Leads to more thoughtful conversations.
Very different from, those algorithms and content moderation policies on other platforms where stuff happens behind the scenes and users feel powerless. But this community-driven approach, doesn't it have its own set of challenges?
Oh, definitely. One of the biggest criticisms is the potential for bias in echo chambers. If a community is left to moderate itself, they might just reinforce their own beliefs and shut out other viewpoints.
Yeah, that's a legitimate worry. How do they address that?
It's an ongoing thing, really. They're always looking for ways to promote, diverse viewpoints and respectful debate. One way is encouraging interaction between different communities so you're exposed to different perspectives. They also have ways for users to report harassment, hate speech, anything harmful, and a team of moderators reviews that.
So a mix of self-governance and oversight from the platform itself. Trying to find that balance between open dialogue and a safe, inclusive space. But let's be real, even with the best intentions, creating a social network that actually lives up to these ideals, it's tough. What are the biggest hurdles for WT Social right now?
Well, one is simply getting people to use it, you know?
Yeah.
The market is dominated by these huge platforms, Facebook, Twitter. It's hard to convince people to pay for a social network when there are so many free options, even if those come with, certain compromises.
It's that age-old question, right? Privacy and ethics versus convenience and what we're used to. Not an easy choice.
You got it. And then there's the whole challenge of actually managing these online communities, moderating the content effectively. It's a never-ending battle against, trolls, spam, people trying to take advantage of the system.
Sounds exhausting, honestly. But gotta admire Wales for taking this on. He's not afraid to shake things up and push for a better experience online.
He's not. And whether WT Social ultimately achieves everything it sets out to do, well, we'll see. But it's an important experiment, raising crucial questions about the future of social media and how technology fits into our lives. It reminds us that we have choices in how we interact online and that we can demand better from these platforms.
A powerful message. And it circles back to what we've been discussing, this power of individuals to drive change. From Wikipedia transforming how we get information to WT Social tackling social media ethics, Wales shows us that one person with a vision can really impact the world. But let's zoom out for a minute. What do you think Jimmy Wales' story says about the future of open knowledge and the internet itself? Big picture stuff.
That's a great question. I think his story shows that the internet, even with all its flaws, has incredible potential to, democratize information and connect people globally. But it also shows that this potential won't just magically happen. It needs people, individuals, and organizations to champion these values, to challenge the status quo, and to build alternatives that focus on ethical considerations and what benefits everyone.
So it's not just passively taking in information, but actively shaping the digital world we live in, something we can all be a part of. But before we go too far down that road, let's turn it over to you, the listener. What are you thinking about us? What's resonating with you as we explored Jimmy Wales' journey?
We'll be back in a moment to wrap up our deep dive and share some final thoughts on what we can learn from Jimmy Wales and his work. Stick with us.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into Jimmy Wales. It's been quite a journey, right? From Wikipedia's beginnings to, this ambitious WT Social project. We've seen how one person's vision can really have a global impact. But as we wrap up, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What stands out to you about Jimmy Wales and his story?
You know what really strikes me is this tension between idealism and pragmatism. He has these big goals, democratizing knowledge, creating a more ethical internet. But at the same time, he's got to deal with the reality of building and sustaining these massive platforms. It's a balancing act for sure.
It is, and it makes you think about the challenges of making these big changes, right? It's not just about a good idea. It's about making it work in the real world with all its messiness.
Exactly. And you can see this throughout Wales's career. With Wikipedia, there was skepticism from academics, worries about accuracy, vandalism, the constant struggle for funding to keep it free. And with WT Social, he's up against these giants trying to get people to use it and at the same time build a healthy, productive online community. It's a constant work in progress.
He keeps pushing the boundaries, but always with his practical side. He's not afraid to try things out, to fail, and to learn from those failures. That's a good lesson for all of us.
It is. It reminds us that progress isn't always a straight line. There will be bumps, challenges, doubts. But what sets people like Jimmy Wales apart is that they can keep that long-term vision while adapting along the way.
It's that resilience, that belief in their mission that keeps them going, even when it's tough. That's something we can all be inspired by, whether it's big global issues or our own personal goals.
Definitely. But while we celebrate these individuals, it's important to remember that real change needs everyone to participate. We can't just rely on a few leaders to solve all the problems.
You're right. We all need to take responsibility, contribute what we can, and work together for a better future. And that's where Wikipedia comes full circle, don't you think?
How so?
It's this amazing example of what can happen when people from all over come together, share what they know, and collaborate towards a common goal. It proves we don't need to be experts or big shots to make a difference. We all have something to contribute.
Beautifully said. And it reminds us that the future of open knowledge, the future of the internet even, is in our hands. We shape the online world we want.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with this. What will your contribution be? Will you be inspired to edit a Wikipedia article, share your own knowledge, or even start a project that promotes open access and sharing?
So many possibilities. And who knows, maybe someday we'll be doing a deep dive on your story and the impact you've made.
No, that's a thought that gives me hope. Go out there, be curious, be bold, and keep learning. The future of knowledge is waiting to be written, and you have a part to play in it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.